I'm Gav, and this is Feel Extra Good Part 2. I wonder if you've ever overheard someone's opinion about you. Have you ever done something in your life and either knowingly or unknowingly caused someone to comment on your actions? I once remember having a bad time at work, which caused me to have around 4 weeks on sick due to my mental health. Whilst on sick, I remember overhearing two of my friends talking, and one of them said, "Gav isn't having a bad time at work, he just can't take the pressure of going to work every day." When I overheard this, I was gutted, as my friend at the time didn't work with me, they didn't know the person who was giving me a hard time at work, and they had no connections with anyone I'd worked with. So where on earth did he get his information that helped him form his opinion? Cut to around 2 months later, my old friend who said I just couldn't cope with the pressure of going to work every day went on sick, which lasted for a good few years, as his mental health spiraled down to some very unhealthy levels. Unless the example I've just given was a coincidence, I think that it shows that the opinions that other people have about you is more a reflection of them than they are of you. But through our experience of working with this method of emotionally linking back, we are slowly finding out that our emotional self hijacks the opinions that we form about the people around us. And it does this to use as a tool to enable us to emotionally link back to a specific childhood event. But this tool that our emotional self uses will eventually come to an end. As if our emotional self carried on using this tool, we could eventually begin to build up the belief that other people have the right to hurt us, since we found a way to use the opinions that we form about them to emotionally link back to our past, which makes us feel better than we have in a good while. So, to stop us from forming unhealthy ideas about the people around us, and to stop us from becoming a bunch of spineless wimps by constantly turning the other cheek, we will eventually hit a barrier, and our emotional self will eventually stop hijacking our negative opinions that we have about the people around us. What does this barrier feel like? When you no longer have the energy to use the opinions that you have about the people around you to emotionally link back to childhood events, is a clear signal that your emotional self has stopped hijacking your opinions and using them as a tool to give you information about your past. So when it begins to feel like a chore to use your negative opinions to emotionally link back, then this shows that your emotional self has stopped using this tool to help you emotionally link back. But when we come to the end of using this method, a few natural knock-on effects occur, which we'll now discuss. Not judging a book by its cover. We are all taught to not judge a book by its cover. Even though books are professionally designed to appeal to us at a glance, which helps us form judgments of whether we should read the book or not. But the not judging a book by its cover metaphor is there to remind us that we can't know someone just by looking at their appearance, or that we can't know a person's worth or value just by seeing their outward appearance, or that a person's character can't be judged just by looking at them. But when we turn the opinions that we have about other people onto ourselves, we soon see that throwing mud at other people is easy, but when we throw the mud at ourselves, this is done with so much more care and so much more respect. Having worked through this stage of using your opinions to emotionally link back, when this method no longer works for you, it's easy to slip back into your old ways of judging other people and commenting on other people's mistakes, and even putting it to an extreme, vilifying some of the people around us. But because of the work that you've done and successfully changed your opinions about the people around you, and gone through the process showing you that your emotional self can hijack your opinions, slipping back into those old ways of giving your negative opinions as freely as you used to won't feel as good or as satisfying to you anymore. Is there another way to form negative opinions about the people around us? One of the tools that I use when I have to form a negative opinion about someone else is I try to think of options of what could be going on in that person's life. For example, Instead of saying Tim is just a bully, I'd say something like, maybe Tim likes to overpower people. Or maybe Tim thinks he's more important if he throws his weight around. Or maybe Tim's wife just isn't giving him any. The most important part isn't the answers that I come up with, but the most important part is the fact that I always start with the word maybe. And more importantly, I know what this maybe represents. As to me, whenever I say maybe, followed my opinion, that maybe means what I'm saying may actually be about me. If we don't want to be the kind of person who doesn't judge a book by its cover, whenever we must form our opinions about the people around us, then try using the word maybe, knowing that it means that you could be talking about yourself. And trying to think about multiple options and not just one option allows us to dilute the importance of our opinions, which also helps us to keep in mind that maybe we're not talking about the other person. And by taking on these two new ways of forming our opinions, that over time, all builds us towards not judging a book by its cover. Cutting our anchors that keep us tied to a person or a type of people. When it comes to exorcising the feelings that help us form our negative opinions about the people around us, yet another knock-on effect occurs, where our opinions naturally change about the negative people we have around us, as we begin to see that person who is stood in front of us without our emotional self hijacking our opinions about them. By emotionally linking back and roaring out those animalistic feelings that lay under the surface, once we finish this process, we don't see the people around us as the bad person, but instead we begin to ask ourselves other questions like, is this person beneficial to have in my life? Or just, why am I keeping this person in my life? And these kind of questions find you, as they come from your emotional self, now that your emotional self has no need to anchor you to this type of negative person just so you can form negative opinions about them. How do I know this? I know this because when I use my projected answers that I put onto the people around me to emotionally link back to my childhood events, once this process was over, I began to see the people around me in a different light, in that I knew on such a deep level that I had no reason to keep some of the people in my life. So I did what anyone would do in this situation. I killed them and buried them in the desert. No. I found ways to get those people out of my life, either by ghosting them or one particular person who I told them to their face that I didn't want to hang out with them anymore. Which, to be fair, burying them in the desert would have been a much easier conversation to have. My God. But I also began to see some of the people in my life as good people that I once misunderstood due to my emotional self attaching past and painful memories to some of the things that those good people did. Letting go of the standards that we hold on people. Another knock-on effect that happens when we use our opinions to emotionally link back is that we naturally let go of the standards that we, sometimes unknowingly, put onto the people around us. And when this happens, we find that people don't get on our bad sides as much, as when we have high standards for someone, they don't have to do much to piss us off, allowing us to form our negative opinions about them. Roaring out our animalistic feelings allows us to experience such a calm in our emotions that we can reflect on the standards that we have unknowingly put onto the people around us in a way that is no longer being hijacked by our emotional self. This means that we can better evaluate the standards that we have on the people around us and even see if it's necessary to have those standards in the first place. Through this realization and evaluation, this means that we end up seeing our partner as just our partner and our companion, and not also as our counsellor and our shoulder to cry on when things get tough. We see our boss as just our boss, and not also as one of our friends, who when they have to scold us at work, we're even more hurt because I invited them to my birthday party last week for God's sake. And for the people that we don't like, we begin to see them as people that we need to replace in our lives, not by burying them in the desert, but by allowing us to naturally lose touch with them until the day comes when they find another person to go and leech off. I'll end by saying that using our projected answers to clear up our past memories, which only comes by following the process and, most importantly, by roaring out the animalistic emotion that the process creates, you will be left with different kind of answers and opinions about the people around you. Some of them you will change to having a positive opinion about, as your new opinions about them will represent the side of you that has more compassion and more understanding. And some of them you will know on a deeper level that they no longer have a place in your life, allowing you to work towards ending that particular relationship. Now that your emotional self won't be hijacking your opinions just to give you messages about your past. With that said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.